Sorry.
One more time.
Criminology, case, capitalism. Are you using this?
No, go ahead.
Not going for tea?
Seems like
Maybe next time.
Since you are.
Only if you promise.
Alright. At the top of this flow, we're not going to go for it, but we're going to clean up a little bit first. First of all, extend all the 2AC is non-unique, so we'll concede the fact that the impacts of our criminology to the debate are non-unique within the status quo. Furthermore, extend the perm. We'll concede that the perm solves, but however, extend the next card, the Buehmiller card that he reads at the bottom, talking about the alternative fails. This means that we'll concede that the alternative fails, which means they can't garner any sort of unique net benefit to the permutation or any unique new advantage based off the permutation, especially in the fact that everything is non-unique with the status quo. Now go to the case debate. All I want here, first of all, we'll go to the trade-off debate. He only puts two arguments on here. One is a blanket assertion that these impacts simply are true. However, too bad he doesn't read any sort of evidence. You should always default to the negatives interpretation of the evidence that talks about how that if you pass plan that it will trade off with the VAWA funding. The VAWA funding is the only thing that the Morrison decision actually left in place, and it was actually one of the more important things of the Morrison decision. It left $1.6 million in place for things like battered women's shelters, hotlines, all sorts of things like this to help women who have been raped within the status quo. Their plan would trade off with this, destroying this. He said his next argument is there's no specific scenario. However, hey, here's the scenario. $1.6 million gets traded off and no longer available to victims of rape in the status quo. You are going to prefer the specificity of the negative evidence here, which means that the point at which they that this takes out all of their solvency for the gender advantage because they take away resources that are currently within the status quo to help rape victims. Now go to the rollback debate. Extend the 1AC symbolism term. One of the cases like Morrison are seen as largely symbolic. That's the first card we read. Talks about how things like the Morrison decision, the Roe decision, the Brown decision are always seen as symbolic. However, within the status quo, these decisions have been stripped of their symbolic nature within this. His only answer to this in the 2AC is that the offenders won't see it as symbolic. However, too bad if the offenders don't see it as symbolic. If the rest of society sees it as purely symbolic, it has no effect on how any sort of solvency. Furthermore, and he says that there's no scenario. However, he doesn't give any sort of evidence. And furthermore, don't give him any leeway on offenders not seeing it symbolically. He doesn't have any sort of evidence. Always prefer and default to the negative specificity. Now go to the cap debate. Look, the revolution is nigh. The AF, however, is inconsistent with our revolutionary ethics. They remain fixated on using the state to reform itself. This ultimately leads to the continuation of global capitalism. This is impacted by our daily evidence in the 1NC. The daily says that within the 1AC you can't use the impacts that the AF tries to present you to outweigh the horrors of capitalism because two things. First of all, capitalism within utilitarian judgments, because capitalism, one, it leads to things such as dehumanization and poverty, which can't be rendered next to things like nuclear war and things that the affirmative will try to weigh with. And furthermore, it also strips the soul, strips value to life, which means that all the impacts with the affirmative rights are non-unique within the status quo because extinction doesn't matter if there's no value to life within the status quo. Now go to the line by line. At the top, he says his first argument is that we must use the work within, reform from within side, and says the revolution will succeed otherwise. However, it's not a question of success. Revolutionary ethics require making political decisions as victory is already at hand, meaning that we can act if we were free while from freedom. Who's the plan when the revs at the doorstep? Zizek 2K2. The genuine revolutionary breakthrough, the utopian future, neither simply fully realized present nor simply evoked in distant promises justify present violence, rather a short circuit between the present and the future. We are not previously asked is utopian future is already first at hand. Since revolution is experienced, not as present hardship, we have to enjoy the protection of happiness and freedom of future generations. With the present hardship over which the future happiness and freedom already cast our shadow on, as we're already free and for freedom, we're already happy. As a fight for happiness, and now show how in our difficult circumstances. And now go to his also extend the first Zizek card. The first Zizek card talks about how the revolution must strike twice, but the first revolution misses is smashing the content and the form. They try to smash the form itself by working within. However, they don't smash the content, i.e. global capitalism. They don't do this. Working within will only lead to more co-option. That's the first Zizek card, which they haven't answered as of the 2AC. Now go to the revolution leads to disastrous politics debate. One, turn. They say we're anti-democratic. So what? The looming threat of totalitarianism is the only thing that could emerge as absent democracy. Is exactly how we come to accept capitalism is the only game in town. Refuse their blackmails. Zizek 2K2. The left is accept the basic coordinate of democracy and now trying to prevent optimism within the space the first thing to do is already fiercely violate liberal taboo. So one needs to be accusing the anti-democratic totalitarianism. The moment one accepts the notion of totalitarianism only from located within the liberal democratic horizon, the notion of totalitarianism is kind of stopgap, actively prevents us from thinking in reference to totalitarianism. Threats sustains a kind of prohibition against things. The movement one shows slice and dictation. The engagement in political projects aims to seriously challenge the existing order. The answers immediately in the new gulag. The political philosophy shamefully exploits the horrors of gulag. The Holocaust is only the boogeyman for black millennials. And renouncing all serious serious radical engagement of the way to conformist liberal conduct find hypocritical satisfaction in the difference of existing order. They know there's a corruption, exploitation, so on. They attempt to change to denounce ethically dangerous and acceptable presenting that goes to totalitarianism. And turn. Their Soviet Union and Red China's examples don't apply to us. Part of our ethical framework is to demand to overthrow not only the content of capital, i.e. its political manifestations, but also the very form of capitalism's deployment, namely the liberal democratic state system crossed by our 1NCA subpoint. Zizek evidence Stalinism is inconsistent with our revolutionary ethics. And 3. Turn. Previous revolutions have not been radical enough. Revolutionary ethics not one pure shot outburst that allows Stalinist dictators to take over the morning after, but is rather a permanent process that continually questions its own presuppositions. Zizek 2K4. A revolutionary process is not well-planned strategic activity, quite the contrary, especially all strategic considerations and hope for better futures as part of the key point of revolutionary process. The true revolution is understanding presuppositions, the problem with hitherto revolution. Attempts within our radical enough. Revolutionary process begins with radical negativity, sweeping away the overwhelming presence. The reconstruction of something new follows the second stage of innovation, new life, not only construction of new social reality, and due to dreams will be realized, but also reconstruction of those dreams without why revolution on that thing the customary order of things should be restored. The revolution not temporary safety way, carnivalesque exploitation to be followed by sobering morning after is here to stay. And now, he says cap key to democracy. However, democracy is a ruse within capital. It's only promoted at most surface level in order to expand the role of global capital. Would 2K3. Do they have the right to vote against a little bearing on the absence of democracy? Barely has U.S. electorate considers worth not to make an effort to win in years. With the current war on terrorism, the U.S. since been teaching the world the civil liberals are not essential requirement of democracy. And counts as the hegemony of capital, the free market, and the Bush regime way of vote. Transparent identification of democracy with the rule of capital and interest of oil in particular. And then he says there's no reason why our plan would stop the revolution. However, extend the 1NC Spartacus evidence talks about the revolution is coming within 10 years. The revolution will be here. However, the act is inconsistent with revolutionary ethics, which means they always put it off, waiting for it to come another day, which means the day must be rejected on face.
I'm ready. Go.